as you get going here, obviously I know it's early, but as you try to take over and kind of look at what you have, who are some of the guys that you're starting to learn about or try to maybe spend a little bit more time with in meetings or when you can to establish the relationships that you need to have?
Well, obviously, everything starts with the quarterback position, and we went and recruited a couple of guys. Billy Edwards obviously is somebody that we're expecting big things from, and he came here not long after I did, and so there's a natural connection there for he and I. But I think that would be the case whether he were new or not. Building a trust and a relationship with your quarterback is certainly something that's important for me. And then, we've got a number of guys that I think are coming back and have some experience. I naturally gravitate towards linemen. I played the position and coached the position for many years, so there's a natural ease for me to just slide over next to the big guys and ask where they're going for lunch and what they had for dinner the night before and that kind of stuff. But there are a number of guys on the team. I'd hate to single out too many because I think I'm in a position right now where I'm really trying to establish a mentality that everybody's got a clean slate and everybody has an opportunity to earn a spot. And because of that, I want everybody to feel like that's real. And one of the things I told them early on was that I hadn't spent a lot of time watching film from last year because I don't know how relevant that is for me, what happened a year ago. And regardless of what I say, there's a human inclination to lean into a preconceived notion that you have. And so I've honestly just tried to avoid that as much as possible. And so as a result of that, I want to be careful with how much I single out too many guys.
What made the school and the staff seem like a good fit for you?
Well, I think first, Wisconsin is a place that I've respected for a long time. It's unique because I've coached in every major conference besides the Big Ten, but I've always respected not only the program in general for their level of success, but the way that they won and the way they played the game. And I think that fits in a couple of ways. One, it fits with our head coach, which also is in alignment with what he was looking for and who I am. And so I think just a mentality that wants to win with a rough, gritty brand of football, one that is going to establish the run and then utilize the vertical passing game that comes from the ability to run the football. And when I talk about running the ball, I'm always careful because I don't want the receivers to check out and feel like it doesn't include them. And so there are a couple of things that I like to talk about with them. Number one is, I believe when you can run the football, then you can do anything. If you can't run the football, then it limits your ability to do a number of other things. But if you have the ability to run the football and run it effectively week in, week out, then it puts enough pressure on the defense that it allows you to do a lot of other things. And one of those things is throwing the football down the field with the play action game. It's something that I believe in wholeheartedly. And if you look at explosive play rates as that leads to win-loss percentage and point differential in games, it's a huge piece of the game in college football. And then the other thing is there are other ways to get receivers the ball as well. And sometimes that is them running the ball, whether that be on a reverse or a fly sweep or bringing them into the backfield in a number of different ways. And so when I talk about running the football, it doesn't just apply to the big guys and the running backs. I hope that's something that is a vision for the entire program that recognizes that's a starting point, but it allows us to do everything that we'd like to do within the game.
Jeff, you might have just hit on this, but what does an efficient passing game look like?
An efficient passing game?
What do you want it to look like? What makes a good passing game here? I'm asking because it's been a while since this program's had one.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to be able, so I'll start where I just left off. I think you have to be able to throw the football deep in order to throw it short. And I think you have to be able to throw the football in order to throw the football deep. And so then if you can throw it deep and you can get defenses to back off or play soft in coverage, then you can come back and throw the football underneath as well. What makes for an efficient passing game? A good quarterback and guys who can get open and catch the football. What is efficient? I think I think there are a couple things. One is, are you completing the ball at a high rate? Are you, hopefully in the upper 2/3, in that 65 to 70% completion range, and then beyond that, what's your yards per catch? A lot of people have a high percentage completion rate, but they're dinking and dunking and it's not leading to points. I don't know if that answered your question exactly or not, but
You mentioned before not wanting to spend too much time studying the film from a year ago since it's a clean slate. What is the process then of trying to learn about these guys, and what's your sense of what you feel like will be most effective as you try to learn about them and how to maximize their skill set?
yeah, it's just spending time with them. Right now, that's not a lot of time. It's watching what they're doing in the weight room with the strength coaches. It's the meetings that we're a part of, and then as we grow closer to spring ball and we're able to do more with them on the field, then there will be a heightened awareness of their skill sets. But if I chose to base too much of my opinion on what they did last year, then I'm giving them something less than a full opportunity to show me what they really can do.
There were a lot of needs addressed in the portal. I know there's a lot of time between now and September, but two of the positions that weren't touched in terms of additions were running back and offensive line. What did you guys like about what was coming back here that, at least for now, you say, okay, we're good?
Yeah, I think there's a good number of players in the offensive line that either have experience or are getting close to the point where we feel like they're ready to play, and then we've got a stable of young guys that are ready to come in and compete. And so I think the recruiting there has been solid, and I think the volume and the type of player that is there, while we may not be returning 5 starters or a bunch of all-conference players, I think we've got the makings of a good group up front. Still unproven, especially in a system that's going to be completely different from what they've done before. But as you alluded to, if we didn't feel like that was the case, then we would have certainly addressed it. And at running back, I think we've got some guys who, again, will compete. I think we've got enough capable players there that we have legitimate competition, and that competition brings the best out of everybody. And so I think we'll have probably 3 or 4 guys that play there, and certainly the guys that produce the most will get more touches than others.
And then what just makes Billy a good fit for your system and what you like to do offensively?
Yeah, there were a number of things that impressed me with his film. I saw a guy that had toughness, that was able to stand in there and take a lot of hits and not impact how he played the game through a lot of balls with people right in his face as he's letting it go, and a lot of times having to short arm the ball because he couldn't even step up and throw the way that you would like to. But none of that impacted him. None of the hits, none of the play in that position. You're going to get banged up probably. None of that seemed to impact how he played the game. I thought he had arm talent, and I thought he had good athletic ability. I like his size. I've played with some quarterbacks who don't have that size, and they can be effective, but it limits what they can do, especially when you're trying to throw over some of the guys that we're playing with in the offensive line. And so it was just really kind of a combination of all those things at first, and then as I got to know him, I recognized that he's got all the intangibles that you'd be looking for. He's smart, he's competitive, and he's really driven to be great, and beginning to see his leadership skills emerge already on our team here.
Jeff, you talk about the importance of the quarterback. You're working with a first-time quarterback coach in Kenny. What's that dialogue like between you guys as you get aligned with how you want things and how he kind of has to bring that position along?
Yeah, good question. Probably not unlike what it is for for me and Kenny a lot differently than it is for me and AJ or Devin or any of the other coaches. Just, hey, how have you done this before? How do you see this concept? How have you coached it? Have you ever tried it this way? Have you thought about that? What's your familiarity like with this? Okay, this is how I like it. This is how we want to do it. And I've really been impressed with not only his knowledge of the game, but his passion for it and his excitement about coaching the position. We talked to a lot of people about that job, interviewed several in person, as well as talked to a lot of guys on the phone. And man, it felt like that's about all I did, that and recruit quarterbacks for the first 2 weeks that I was here. But at the end of all that, to a man, our offensive staff, and all those guys sat in on the interviews with me and Coach Fickle. But all of us felt like he was the best guy for the job. And, I think you probably have a certain perception of someone based on what his position is at that time. And, he's been a receivers coach. He's coaching receivers. That he knows that position. But then you hear him start talking about the quarterback position, and immediately you go, oh, wow, this guy really knows. It's not just something that he did a long time ago. You can tell he's continued to pay attention and learn along the way. But then on top of that, as I alluded to earlier, he's got a real passion for coaching the position, and our quarterbacks are feeling that already, and I'm loving it too.
You mentioned wanting to be gritty and physical and run the ball. Obviously, those are staples and probably music to the ears of a lot of people around here for what they did for so long. What's the response been from players and maybe just people, fans? I don't know if you've had time to talk to
I haven't interacted with anybody really too much other than our players and the rest of the staff. But I think, I know everybody's excited about the direction that we're headed. And, right now it's just talk, and I'm in a honeymoon phase. I haven't called any bad plays yet, and we haven't lost any games since I've been here. So we're doing great so far. But the eagerness is something that I judge it on when I go to a new place. What are the players like when they meet me, and what are they like as I begin to get to know them? And I see a real excitement about learning something new, and I sense a hunger, a hunger to prove that this can be a good offense, and we can get Wisconsin back to what it's known for. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to winning games, regardless of what we do on offense. And so that's got to lead to the other thing. But I think the early results are good.
Jeff, with just the quarterback position as itself, and you've gone to the portal, you're also bringing in someone like Carter Smith too. Is it, I guess, just look at the quarterback position as a whole with the college football playoff, having 2 transfer quarterbacks starting in that game, and obviously just how the transfer portal's altered that position group. Is it still ideal to try to recruit that quarterback to come in, and be there for years, or is it more advantageous now to go find a proven type of quarterback that fits the system, within what you're trying to do now?
Yes. Yes to both. I think you want as many good players on your team as you can have. And if there's a kid that's in high school that you like, that you think is a good fit, then you take him and you hope that it works out for him and he stays here. So one of the things that we ask, I think, or should be asking if we're not, a little bit more than we used to, is this a guy that's really a fit at this school? And do we think there's something about this place that would hold him here? Or is he going to bolt the first minute he's told that he's not the starter? But, ideally, you recruit a kid that you like out of high school, he develops, and then at some point he becomes the starter. The question for those young guys is that time frame acceptable for what they're looking for? And that always becomes the issue. But if your mindset is, hey, we're just going to get guys through the portal, then I think you're short selling yourself the opportunity to bring in a guy who's a great Wisconsin fit that is going to become that guy for you in some period of time.
Speaking of the quarterback position, how important is it for the quarterback to be able to be a dual threat option for you in the backfield?
I think they've got to be able to provide some sort of athleticism, and I think in 2 ways. One, they have to have the ability to escape and get out of trouble when you're throwing the football, and then I'd like for them to present some level of run threat to the defense. How much that is depends on a number of other factors. I look at it on a sliding scale. If a guy is a dynamic athlete and every time he touches the ball, he's got a chance to make an explosive play, then I might take a little bit less in some of the other categories. He might not be quite as tall, or his arm might not be quite where you want it to be now, or his knowledge of the game. On the other hand, if a guy has just enough athletic ability to be an escape threat and maybe run a quarterback draw every now and then he better be able to rip that football, and he better be great in helping the offensive line get to just the right call and protection, and he better bring a lot of other things to the table as well. And ideally, you got a big guy who's a great thrower and a good runner too. But I think there are very few teams that are talented enough everywhere to play with a quarterback that can't move around much anymore.
You'd say it has to be a part of it.
It's got to be part of it. Yep. I would not take a guy that I didn't think could run some.
Time for a couple more here. What was Luke's message or pitch to you when you were first approached about this? Why you thought you...
It was interesting because he and I didn't know each other and really didn't even have familiarity with each other. Only knew each other by reputation. And so honestly, the initial phase was, just kind of getting to know each other and seeing, I think, personality-wise, if that would be a good fit, and then into football a little bit more, and recognizing that, okay, there's an alignment here in terms of how we both believe that the game should be played and how we want to build the culture in such a way that we're going to win with toughness and guys who have a passion for the game and are driven towards it even more than the scheme. One of the things that I talk to the offense about a lot is that, we have a lot of cool plays, but everybody has a lot of cool plays. At the end of the day, toughness over tactics. It's more about that than the strategy and how you're going to do it. It's how you run those plays, not how cool they look on a playbook or on a diagram and in somebody's video.
What are some of the things you do to maybe create that culture of grit and toughness? And when you see somebody having grit, how do you maybe identify it?
I think you make it a big deal, and most of that won't come in a football sense until we get to spring football and we put the pads on and you give guys opportunities to do it. I think there are some chances through the off-season program right now to see that a little bit. And so I think you make a big deal out of it and you point to that and go, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I need. And sometimes you may have some guys that are more generally predisposed that way. And so you make those guys the standard and you keep pointing at them. And then there are some other guys who say, man, I want to be like that. And then there may be a guy who hasn't done that a whole lot. And then you find a moment where he does and you point it out. And that maybe lights a spark for him that leads him to something more than what he's ever done before. That's the really cool thing about this job, is you get to help guys become something more than what they have been before. And then the other side of it is you got to hold them accountable when it's not that way. I mean, if a guy's out there and is not giving his best effort, or isn't playing tough and physical, is turning down opportunities for contact, then they're going to hear about that from me and the rest of the staff.
Yeah, one kind of broad one as we close. Just what are some of your biggest influences in coaching as you kind of look back through your career?
Oh, man. So I was fortunate to play for Andy Reid. He was my offensive line coach for 2 years in college and is still somebody that I respect just a ton. And, there's a commonality there in the fact that he was an offensive line coach that is going to become, one of the greatest play callers and head coaches that the NFL has seen. And just not only a great coach, but a great person. Then, as I got started in coaching, I had a lot of mentors who were offensive line coaches. I was a GA for Mike Sherman at Texas A&M, and a number of other really good coaches early on who really influenced me as an offensive line coach, and I guess taught me how to block people and how to organize practice. And then as I got a little bit further along and worked for a number of different coordinators and head coaches, Dirk Cutter is a guy that I worked for. Actually, he was the offensive coordinator at UTEP when Andy Reid was my offensive line coach, and then I worked for him at Boise State and Arizona State. And probably more than anybody else, I think I learned the nuts and bolts of how you create an offense and how you really build a system that's sound from him more so than anybody else. And then lots of guys that have had lots of success in a number of the places that I've been. And I was at Virginia Tech for 1 year with Frank Beamer. Just learning from a guy who I think is as good a head coach as you could ever possibly be around. Bronco Mendenhall was a head coach when I was at BYU for a couple of years, and a great head coach and a guy who was probably as good as anybody I've been around at building a culture and holding players accountable. And man, I'd be remiss to stop anywhere. I've been coaching for 31 years now, and I've had a lot of good people along the way that have helped me get to this point. And we're all a combination of whatever's inside of us and then the influences that lead us to where we are. So I'm certainly grateful for all of those, and grateful to be here now for another experience.